everyone. Welcome to Center for Spiritual Living, Morristown. I'm Frankie Timmers, spiritual director here, and I'm so glad that you're here and that you didn't have to come by boat. I really keep seeing this rain moving towards California across the land, so join me in that because we really can make a difference with what we see and how we think. I know that when we watch the news and we freak out, that does not help. So then we clear ourselves, take care of ourselves, and then we send the powerful ideas where they need to go, right? So if you're here for the first time, I'm really glad that you found your way here because I remember what it felt for me the first time, and that's a long time ago, about half my lifetime ago. And of course, it's never the same for everyone, but there's remembrance. There's a remembrance that happens, sometimes not at a conscious level, that you're home, that you are in a place where you know you can surrender to love with a capital L. You can learn some things about yourself. You can learn how to use your mind in a more powerful way. And then together we create a world that works for everyone. And so I am glad, especially if you found your way here for the first time, and especially those of you that have been coming for a while and everyone in between, because together we create spiritual community. So what we always do at our center is a spiritual mind treatment, which is our word for affirmative prayer. So I invite you to close your eyes and to just take a moment and turn within. There is something inside of us that already knows this truth. That's why we can speak it. That's why we can hear it. That's why we can receive it. And so affirmative prayer is simply stating what already is at the absolute level of truth. And so right here, right now, what I declare is that we live in a spiritual universe, that we don't have a soul, we are a soul. And as a soul, we've been given this human experience to awaken to our soul's journey, to awaken to our own essential wholeness, which is what the soul is, to awaken to divine love, which it only knows as the truth, and to transform our consciousness in alignment with the truth that already is. And so I know we're all in the right place at the right time with the right group of people to rise up into who we really are and to release or to heal or to transform whatever is in the way. And that we get to do with love, with harmony, with peace, with joy. And so we claim this as our own truth right here and right now, and then we share it with those around us, knowing that the more we share it, the more we become it. And for that, we are deeply grateful, and so it is. So I have the beautiful Gail Belluardo with us today as the assisting practitioner. She'll do some wonderful sharing with you and a little practice, and her beautiful husband sitting right next to her. And I get to do the talk, and I get to be DJ. This happened as an accident sometime last year because the musician was sick, and then you all went, wow, that was so cool, can we do it again? So we usually do it once a month, and I have some really great music. Ooh. All right, so my topic today is, oh, mind of mine. And I'm going to talk about mind with a small m and mind with a capital M. Because sometimes we think it's mind with a small m and mind with a capital M, and they're kind of separate, but really our mind with a small m is our use of universal mind, which is within us. Then I'm going to talk about that gap in between individual mind and universal mind, and then I'm going to talk about how we can build better bridges, and I have a really cool story for you that I trust is as much an inspiration to you as it is to me. So the most famous quote that our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, spoke ever, I think, is change your thinking, change your life, which, as simple as it is, seems to be deeply confusing to people. And even when we start thinking about that, we might have a lot of questions. Or we might just avoid it. Oh, great, that's great for other people, but not for me. It doesn't quite work for me, right? We can really talk ourselves out of realizing that our mind is our most powerful possession and is the place where we claim a greater sense of freedom, and that it's important how we use it. Because our mind becomes our reality. How we think, we live. You can think about that for a minute. If you're always afraid, you're going to have a very different life than when you're having faith or you're trusting. If you love people and accept them for who they are, you're going to have a whole different experience than when you judge them. If you practice peaceful mindfulness and meditation, you're going to have a different day than when you wake up worried and anxious. Would you agree? So what we learn in this teaching is we learn to use the mind, our mind, in the highest and best ways. So how many of you have lawnmowers or have ever possessed a lawnmower? What do you do with a lawnmower? You mow the lawn. Anybody have snow blowers? How? What do you do with a snow blower? You blow snow. You remove snow. Anybody ever use a pen? What do you do with a pen? You write. So how come these are so commonsensical, but when we say, how do you use your mind, we kind of go, it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and sometimes I just go unconscious after I've eaten a pint of ice cream or done other things that may not be so good for me. But it's just as important. Actually, it's more important for us to realize that that's a tool, that's an instrument that we possess, that we must use more and more consciously and more for good and more powerfully. What we can see in the world is the use of mind. So you might see these great, awesome world wonders and miraculous organizations that have been created or things, or you might see war or poverty or lack and limitation. That's all the result of mind and how mind has been used. So it behooves us to pay attention to how we're using our mind and make some choices, so that we're using it more and more for good, because the mind that we're using is our spiritual mind, our God mind. Our God mind is not out there somewhere, it's within us. It's our highest thinking. It's our highest consciousness. It's already within us. It's already available. You don't get it at Walmart or Target, whatever is your favorite. You find that within yourself. And so it requires that we pay attention and that our intention is about expanding our mind. And we have, I don't know about you, but I have a gazillion opportunities per day, right? And so we get to think about that. Am I contracting the use of my mind, or am I expanding it? The way expansion feels to me is freer, more peaceful, more loving, more kind, more compassionate, more easy. Contraction feels like frustration, anger, fear, anxiety, judgment, right? Would you agree? It's a different experience, and it's appropriate sometimes to contract, just to kind of step back, but that's a different form. So we want to pay attention to that. And so I have this really powerful thing I want to say to you right now that I'm going to work with for a moment. So there is this thing that we think we are. I think I am female, spiritual director at Center for Spiritual Living, a sister, that I'm experiencing a health challenge, have so much money in the bank, I drive a Honda CR-V. That's so weird to say after driving only Volkswagens. You know, that I live in New Brunswick, I'm in the United States, so I'm kind, I'm compassionate, I'm always learning and growing. So there's this thing that we think we are, and you as well. They may be a little different, and some of them might be similar. And then there is that which you really are. What you really are is a soul. What you really are is a unique individualization of spirit itself. What you really are is love. What you really are is infinite possibility. What you really are is free. What you really are is whole, perfect, and complete. And so you might be sitting here going, I'd really like that one. And so what we find is that there is a gap. What we think we are, or who we think we are, and who and what we really are, is not always connected. It can be, and it often is for those of us on the spiritual path. You just have to meditate or treat or make love or kiss or get a new puppy or look in the eyes of your children or grandchildren or be doing yoga, whatever it is for you, walking in Mother Nature. That's when they are connected. You can feel it, right? You can feel that. But a lot of the time there's that gap, and I believe that as a soul we chose it to come into this human experience and to experience the gap, not as torment and punishment, but as a way to wake up to who and what we really are. Hence we're in this kind of a teaching. And so that gap, that rub, that sense of disconnect, that sense of separation that we might feel can show up in our relationships. It can show up with our health. It can show up in our work. It can show up in our bank accounts. It can show up in our daily problems. It can show up in the world. We're seeing it in the world. We see that gap loud and clear. We think it's not connected to us, but remember that between me and you, me and all of us, there's also a connection. It's not separate. And we must also bridge that gap. And so what we call that is separation. And separation, to me, and in this teaching, just means that we have forgotten who we really are. We have forgotten that we are pure spirit. We have forgotten that we are love. We have forgotten that there's an infinite well of wisdom within us to use and be used by. We just have forgotten. And then once we forget, we're lost. And once we're lost, we suffer. But that is exactly the way back to remembrance. So if I'm cursing my forgetfulness or I'm judging my feeling lost, that will not lead me back to remembrance. It will not lead me back to my wholeness. It will lead to more separation. So if I can see my forgetfulness or my challenges or my problems as the way to remembering who I really am, then they become blessings. And sometimes you hear people say that. My house burned down and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. My husband left me and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I got sick and it was the best thing that has happened to me. You'll hear that, right? And so all experiences then are for us, are for our good, are for our growth, never against. So that means that we have to do some work because we have to shift that mindset that it's working against us, that it's a problem, that it's blocking us. No, it's the way in. It's the way to the truth. And so we experience crises and stress not as a way of realizing that you've done something wrong, that there's something wrong with you, but as a way to grow and to expand your mind and to know more deeply that your experiences are for your awakening. So I really love to listen to the TED Radio Hour. I don't always watch TED videos because I'm not, I like to listen while I'm driving because I drive more now. But I love to listen to the TED Radio Hour, and I was listening the other day to a story, actually 3 stories, but I'll tell you only one that was really powerful. It was about when people experience profound crises and they use it to transform their lives. And the one that I really liked so much was by a man named Matt Weinstein, who is the founder of a team building company called Playfair. Did anybody hear that piece? Oh, good. It's even more fun to tell you when you... So Matt was on an expedition. I don't remember exactly, but you can find out, because sometimes when we hear things, they aren't always exactly what was being said. Have you noticed that? He was on a research ship in Antarctica, and he didn't have much contact with his wife because it was like $10 per minute to talk on the phone. But he got a phone call, which rarely ever happened, from his wife, and he was like a little worried, you know. So he went on the phone, and what he found out was that Bernie Madoff had just been arrested. And so this was like in the mid to early 2000s, right? And they had lost all their life savings, everything. And he tells the story about Bernie Madoff before he was Bernie Madoff, where people would invest because they didn't know. Even if you did research on him, they just didn't know. Is there anybody here that invested with Bernie Madoff? Okay, so there was a lot that I didn't know that I heard from him, but the most interesting thing was that when he got back, he decided to go to a meeting with 10 other people that were in the same boat. And the first person said, let me literally read it to you because it was so touching. The first person said, so they said, let's go around and talk about if we would have done one thing differently, what would it be? And the first 3 people that spoke, they said, I wouldn't change a thing. Did you hear that? I wouldn't change a thing. My heart is so open, and I feel so connected to other people. I feel so connected to myself. I feel so present and so alive right now that no amount of money could bring me to this place. He was so stunned and still in a lot of anger. This is Weinstein. I was in a lot of shame too. I was frightened about what would happen in the future. And you know what helped me realize was that there's not just one way to look at a thing. I don't have to be a perpetual victim because these people aren't. It's not really what happens. It's how you internalize it. So the message is that when we have a challenging experience, we have to pay attention to what we're thinking, how we're looking at it, and that we have the freedom to choose to look at it in a different way, a way that's more expansive, a way that will transform and heal us, a way that will grow us. It was Epictetus, and I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, the 2,000 year ago philosopher who said people are not really disturbed by things that happen. They're disturbed by how they view those things. He also said, you can't always choose your external circumstances, but you can choose how to respond. And so that's the gift of this teaching. This teaching teaches us how to respond in a way that you are lifted and supported, that you grow and that your mind expands, that you see yourself from the perspective of who you really are rather than who you think you are, which is often based upon our conditioning. And so my question to you is, when did you forget who you really are? And it's not to be answered out loud. Just think about it for a moment. When did you forget who you really are? Or maybe the question is, how? Because maybe you all remember who you really are, but there are moments where you forget. When something throws you off and you forget who you really are, And then you step on that road and you travel for a while until you go, I remember who I really am. So when we're struggling, that's a really good question to ask ourselves. What have I forgotten? Where did I forget who I really am? And so Ernest Holmes says this from the book Creative Mind, which is his first one that was written 100 years ago. The one who can, with perfect confidence, look into the future and with perfect ease of mind, rest in the present, and who never looks backward, but who has learned to be still in his or her own soul and wait upon the Spirit, is the one who will the most completely demonstrate the supremacy of spiritual thought over all of so-called material resistance. Be still and know I am God. I'm going to read that again. The one who can, with perfect confidence, look into the future and with perfect ease of mind rest in the present, and who never looks backward, but who has learned to be still in his or her own soul and wait upon the Spirit, is the one who will the most completely demonstrate the supremacy of spiritual thought over all so-called material resistance. Be still and know I am God. The beautiful words of the Master Teacher Jesus. Our purpose as a human incarnation is to free ourselves of limited thinking, limited beliefs, to free ourselves of the burden of our interpretation of an experience that we think is limiting us. Our purpose is to notice where that happens. Our purpose is to notice where we have forgotten who we really are and to remember. So how do we do that? Well, I think it starts by remembering that we are a soul, that we don't have a soul, we are a soul. Remembering that we are on this spiritual journey that is perfect for us, no matter what is going on. And to make that choice, to literally choose to remember who you really are, and to let go or transform or process or heal who you think you are, the parts that are limited. And so when we remember who we really are and we choose that and we live that, then we know that love is all there is. Now, one of the reasons I think we struggle so much with love is because divine love, God's love, universal love is 100% proof. And you can't drink 100% proof. It will kill you. But you can take a diluted form of it and take little sips and be present with what it feels like to take little sips of love into your being, from spirit within, from your own heart, from others, and not translate love the way your favorite Motown songs interpret love. Not interpret love from a limited perspective, the way people say, love kills, love breaks my heart, love, there isn't enough. Those kind of ideas that are limited about love just aren't true. You've just come to believe them, and you need to awaken to them so that you can transform them. Love is love, and love is unconditional, and love is infinite, and there's enough to go around for all of us. So why are you resistant? What have you forgotten? The other thing that we have to remember is that we're already whole. There's nothing missing. There's nothing broken. There's nothing lacking. Even where we say we are, in it there is the potential for awakening to our wholeness. It's remembering that we already are fully alive and vibrant. Life is not in black and white. It's in the full range of color. Take it all in. Allow yourself to be alive from that place of vibrancy, that place of love, that place of wholeness. You know, it's like we're walking on a planet where everybody's sleepwalking. They're like miserable. But that means that they've gone to sleep and they're not aware of the vibrant life that is flowing through our veins, that is in our consciousness, that is available to us to be lived, that we are worthy of, that we can accept and choose. Ask yourself, if I have forgotten who I really am, what do I need to remember? What do I need? Maybe it's a cup of coffee. I don't know what it is for you. Maybe it is a nap. I saw Christopher Robin yesterday, the movie. Please go see it today and bring tissues. I haven't digested it yet. I want to do a whole talk on it because it was so beautiful. It really was about what I'm talking about is that Christopher forgot who he really was. And he needed to remember. And he remembered, and when he did, he changed his life. And Winnie the Pooh, oh my God, he was so cute. He said such funny things. I laughed, I cried. I said to Norman, we always rate the movie at the end of a movie. Okay, he says, at 3, say your number. And we rated from 0 to 10. And I said, 11! I said, I think it's one of the best movies I've ever seen. I want to own it. It's so good. It's got so many great messages. So, remember to use your mind from that awareness that it's your use of universal mind. My teacher has said, he imagines God looking at us and saying, you do this with that? You do this with your mind? With your heart? Really? It's become a mantra. And it's a way to close any sense of separation, any place where you experience a gap, where you were not in integrity with the truth of your being. And then build that bridge, asking yourself, what bridge do I need to be building? It might be really simple. It doesn't always have to be complicated. I think the more complicated it is, the more it's not really what it is. So enjoy thinking about what you have forgotten. And then in the place of remembrance, begin to live it.
So, I just want to say how grateful and emotional I feel this morning. Really. The music you found is so phenomenal, and your talk was, wow. So, it's my honor to be the assisting practitioner today. My name is Gail Belluardo. If you're new here, and I am also recently on the Leadership Council as a member, so I'm grateful to be there, here, and everywhere, actually. And also, some of you may know, and some of you may not know, my profession is that I'm a psychotherapist. And I'm so grateful for this teaching because it really took my growth in personal growth, my consciousness growth, and everything, my relationship growth, in a deeper and a more expanded way than I ever imagined was possible. So, and I wanted to say that, I was trained as a psychoanalyst, so I was very much trained to focus on the individual, to help individuals become more fully themselves, more fully integrated and whole within themselves, setting boundaries with other people if necessary, releasing codependency if necessary, which has been some of my work. And really, so when I got here, I began to realize that being part of the world, the larger world, is so much equally important. And so we believe in oneness and that we are each individualized expressions of God. And what I'm grateful to say is that psychotherapy is finally catching up. And what I mean by that is that there's a lot more use of meditation and mindfulness in psychotherapy, and there's a lot more awareness of being whole within yourself and whole in your environment. And there's a doctor who has done some great work. His name is Dan Siegel. He's a psychiatrist in UCLA, and he's done studies on mindfulness and meditation, and really helping people to bridge that between the individual and the other. And he participated in a conference on the quantum physics of psychotherapy. How about that, right? And what they found is what we already know and what we teach is that consciousness is necessary for any kind of change. And they also described health as both individualization and integration with the self and your outer world, meaning your family, your community, your work, and everything. And they found that if you only work on yourself, you are in separation. You're in separation not just from God, although you may have a connection with God, but you're in separation with others. And that it's required for health that you both be individuated and also integrated within yourself and integrated in your community. And we may be hearing a little more about that as we go along in the next year. So he talked about healing modalities using energy and information in the direction of integration and differentiation. So there's an awareness of what he calls me and we at the same time. And personally, I either focus on me or them, right? So my work has been, how do I stand fully as who I am in relationship and connected to others? So we love words in our teaching. We believe that words are so very powerful. And Dan Siegel created a word for this integration, and he calls it MWE, M-W-E. Me and we together. And basically what he's saying is that MWE is the awareness of oneself and the other and the outer world, and to be able to hold your awareness of all of it at the same time. And I think that's a lifelong journey for me and for most people. And he describes MWE, more specifically, the ability to take care of yourself as well as a deep commitment to take care of others and the world.
So we close with the healing treatment, which is our word for affirmative prayer. So I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to think of something that you would love to be free of, something you'd really love to have healed, something you'd like to let go of. So before we experience freedom from it, before we heal from it, we have to actually love it. Because if we hate it, it can't heal. So let's do this by placing it in your heart and infusing it with compassion and just say, now you can go. And so let's know this truth together, that there is a power and a presence that is greater than we are or will ever be, that is within us, that we are already using 24/7. Today we become more aware of how we use it, and we make choices about using it for good. We forgive ourselves at least once a day for any misuse, because some of it happens unconsciously due to our conditioning, due to our past, but that is simply an opportunity to remember that we are love, and that love transforms us, that compassion heals us, that choosing peace breaks up any conflict, that bringing acceptance to who and what we are is our way of choosing to use our mind for good. And so today, whatever we've placed in our heart is transformed simply because we become aware, we choose to love, and we remember who we really are. And that transforms our world. For there is only the we. And for that we are deeply grateful. And so it is.